Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back. It's a brand new edition of Daily to Dynasty. I'm Craig Orbanoff alongside Rich Wilhelm. We're here every single week talking to you about all things fantasy football. I'm in a little bit of a different location because I live in a one-bedroom apartment and the office space is currently being used as workspace as it is 3:56 on a Wednesday afternoon. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about fantasy football. We're in bye-week territory, so now not only is half of the NFL injured or has COVID, Rich, but they're also just not playing in general. They're on bye. So this is where real fantasy football championships are made or broken, and ignore my team's chat going bananas. I'm going to close that out while we talk about fantasy football. We want to thank our partners, of course, the Underdog newsletter, jokermag.com/newsletter. They compile all the best Underdogs stories from around the globe, and then they compile it on a weekly newsletter. Going to want to check them out. Give them a subscribe. Helps them out, helps us out. It's a great relationship, and who doesn't love a good old underdog story? And also, if you are into a little DFS, a little into winning some money, there's the Thrive Fantasy app. Use the promo code Daily to Dynasty at checkout. You deposit 20, you get 20, you bet with 40. Simple math. Lots of fun. So, Rich, let's dive right into it, and we'll real quick glaze past the Thursday night football game because there's not a ton of action here, and by the time we get the show out as well, I don't think it's going to affect too many people's lineups. But is there just anything of note besides Chris Godwin being out? Leonard Fournette is still listed as questionable for the Bucs. Is there anyone who jumps off the page?
I mean, besides Mike Evans, really no. Mike Evans, you got to start. Ronald Jones is probably going to be good this game just because he's the only show in town. And on the other side of the ball, I mean, I don't really know. I have Allen Robinson on a couple of my teams, and I'm kind of afraid to start him just because I think he's going to get shut down. So it kind of Evans or bust on this game for me.
I have one little sneaky play, and I think Cameron Brate is going to start to work himself into the tight end rotation for the Tampa Bay Bucs. O.J. Howard had an Achilles injury, if I'm not mistaken. Gronkowski doesn't look like the Gronkowski of old. Cameron Brate maybe it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I literally asked, what happened to Cameron Brate? I thought he was like the next tight end, and he seemingly disappeared. He gets in the end zone last week. Someone to consider for sure. But let's roll on through to Sunday now, and this is what I think could be the blowout of the century, New York Jets fans, and I think I'm going to say that every single week. But you're wearing the hat, so let's start with them. The Arizona Cardinals are 7-point favorites on the road at MetLife Stadium, I believe, if I'm reading this right.
Yeah, it's 7. I know it's 7 because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lick of sense. And listen, I think the Jets proved one thing last week in that they're capable of giving you garbage time quality points from players. Meaning, there's a lot of real no-name guys on this team, but they're still capable of putting up fantasy numbers. And I think in an era in the NFL when guys are out left and right due to injury, due to COVID, due to bye weeks. There's a lot of things to overcome here. There could be some potential value in certain players on the New York Jets. That being said, I think there's value in everybody on the Arizona Cardinals, and really only if you're desperate should you be considering someone on the Jets. But I do think that there are a lot of desperate people watching, listening. People need some help with their fantasy leagues, Rich. So who are some sleepers in this matchup that we can give out?
I mean, if you're talking sleepers, I think all the sleepers are on the Jets. I mean, if you're talking – hold on one second.
He's a popular man. I'll fill in while it goes. I'm not into editing this show anymore, Rich. There's a guy who really stood out to me last week during the Jets game, and that's wide receiver Jeff Smith, who shared the same number as former Jet receiver Brad Smith, which is maybe why I like him. But he had a great game. put up 15 points. He was targeted 9 times. He didn't get in the end zone, but I thought he was someone who really was targeted a lot in this offense. Now, Sam Darnold won't be playing this week. Joe Flacco will be in. I don't know how that changes the dynamics. But in my mind, what that means, the backup usually has a better rapport with some receivers who are a little bit lower on the depth chart as opposed to the starters. So when the backup comes in, guys like a Smith or a Berrios has worked his way into the starting lineup as well. But those kinds of guys usually have a better rapport with the backup quarterback because that's the guy they're working with. So if you're desperate, if you're really desperate, this could be someone who's worth picking up and maybe sneaking in a flex type of depending on the rest of your league. I think I bought you enough time, Rich. Take me through some sleepers.
I mean, Jeff Smith was the main one. Flacco, if all your quarterbacks are on fire, you can try it, but it's not going to work out well. I guess you could try to go with Le'Veon Bell if he comes back, which is, we don't know if he's coming back or not. He is on the return list, but they have 21 days in order to activate him. So who knows if it's going to be this game. Denzel Mims isn't coming back. So like you said, it's going to be Jeff Smith or even Vincent Smith, who is the other Smith who's getting activated off of the list. Not Brad, but close. But yeah, the Cardinals are going to blow the doors off the Jets, which you'll see in my daily lineup a little later on. On the Cardinals side of things, I mean, Andy Isabella could be someone that you sneak in there as a sleeper. He's not owned in a lot of leagues.
It's a bad option. I mean, he got in the end zone twice 2 weeks ago. So there is a rapport there. And, I think everyone could get a turn in the end zone this week on the Arizona side.
Yeah, Chase Edmonds is another one. If you're really desperate at running back, he did look good last week. Jets can't stop anything at any time. So, everyone's going to have a party on that defense. Look at Tim Patrick last week. He looked like, Calvin Johnson. So, yeah, everyone for the Cardinals. Start the Smiths for the Jets if you're completely desperate, which you shouldn't be at this point because you're probably 0-4.
Yeah, probably. And listen, the over-under for this game, 47.5 points. I'm inclined to take the over because I think the Cardinals will put up 45.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, alone. Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Don't over-under. As long as the Jets get a field goal by that. I think they'll hit the over. So that should be a terrible one to watch Sunday at 1 p.m. Let's head on over to I got to think of a funny pun for this team, but the Atlanta Falcons are just choking left and right. They have seemingly forgotten how to play the game of football. Will you teach them to football? Someone should.
As long as they don't eat me.
And they're taking on the Carolina Panthers. Somehow the Falcons are favored in this one. I thought the Panthers looked awesome last week. Teddy Bridgewater is seemingly back to being the first-round draft pick. Teddy Bridgewater. Robbie Anderson, I don't know if he would have been this good as a Jet.
Not a shot.
But as a Panther, looking really good. DJ Moore is looking good. Blanking on the running back's name who's filling in for Christian McCaffrey.
Mike Davis.
It's pretty but they're looking like a good offensive team. I don't know defensively how much they'll be able to slow down the Falcons, but I think they're going to be able to put up enough points to win this game. They're 1.5-point underdogs. I like them a lot in this matchup. And I'm starting Teddy Bridgewater in my league. I also have Joe Burrow. They're playing the Ravens, so pretty much a no-brainer decision. But I think Teddy Bridgewater is a really good start this week. I think Robbie Anderson's a really good start this week. I like this matchup a lot for the Panthers. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it is really going to be a shootout, though. I mean, the Falcons are always a team that's going to stay in every game, except when they play the Packers, apparently. But
a goose egg.
Yeah, goose egg. And if Julio Jones doesn't play, I think it's definitely going to be the Panthers' game to lose. On the Panthers side of things, Mike Davis, he's going to be someone that you want to start, this week and next week when McCaffrey is out, and then never start him again. Robbie Anderson is top 4 in receiving, I think, which is insane. But that would not be the case on the Jets because they don't know how to do anything right.
They can't throw it. Yeah,
can't do anything. DJ Moore is a good start in this game because the Falcons, passing defense isn't what it should be. And on the Falcons side of things, I don't even know. I mean, Matt Ryan, even though that he's throwing to garbage most of the time, he still gets good stats. Todd Gurley did get in the end zone a couple times, so I mean, he's going to have to.
Last week, I mean, they were behind big pretty early, and Gurley was still getting his numbers. So I think that's a player worth starting, especially against a Panthers defense that is a little less than stellar.
Yeah, I mean, you see the leads that the Falcons give up. I mean, you see, the Panthers can stay in every game. So, I mean, this is going to be a high-powered offensive game, and the defenses are going to look like trash, essentially.
Yeah, I like that analysis. The over-under 54.5. What do you think? Gut feeling.
I wouldn't touch that one, just simply because Julio's not going to play, and Calvin Ridley apparently can't catch balls anymore. So, I don't know. I think I wouldn't touch that one at all. I hope it's over.
I wouldn't bet it, but I do think it's probably the over. Let's head to the AFC North, where Joe Burrow, now an NFL winning quarterback, is the 12.5-point underdog to Lights Camera Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Listen, I don't think the Bengals can really compete with the Ravens. I think they're two different caliber of teams. I do think Burrow and the Bengals will put up a couple of points, maybe 2 touchdowns, but I think that the Ravens are gonna torch them here. They probably end up, covering their spread. I think they're a full 2 touchdowns better than the Bengals. And from a fantasy perspective, it's kind of one of those. I think you can start anyone on Baltimore, and you'll probably be happy.
I mean, I'm just really disappointed in Hollywood Brown so far this year. As far as he goes, I'm not starting him in my league, but like you said, it's going to be the Ravens' game to lose. Lamar Jackson will have a good game. Mark Andrews is alive again after being dead the week before. I think this is a good game for the running backs too, because you saw what the Browns did against the Bengals on Thursday night. The Ravens are kind of the same way with their running backs. So you have Dobbins, you have Ingram, you have Gus Edwards. You can get everyone involved. And on the Bengals side of things, Burrow is going to have to throw because he's going to be down a lot. So you're looking at Burrow to possibly start just because he's going to get a ton of garbage yards. And then T. Higgins would be the receiver that I would go after, either T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd. AJ Green's not a football player anymore, so don't worry about that. And last week, Joe Mixon had a crazy game.
A historic game. I think he put up like 40 points.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns. I mean, I had him in my flex, which was nice. But now I don't know if I can start him this week because Baltimore is really good against the run. So I don't know. I'm going to have to decide, probably Sunday morning.
That's a buyer beware for me. And, you're going to have to look at the rest of the players in your lineup, on your bench, to see if there's someone who maybe has a better matchup. Because I think it's very easy to go, scored 40 last week, he's going to have another good game. And this matchup really isn't so good for Mixon. That game last week is kind of a bit of an anomaly on the season. You're going to have to play it by ear. I don't think he's going to have that good of a game. I think he could get in the end zone once, but I think you're looking at maybe 11 points from Joe Mixon this week. And you have to, kind of gauge what the rest of your lineup is. This is going to be a tough week as teams are on bye and there's COVID, blah, 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 blah. A lot to figure out. Let's head on over to the Houston Texans. Have they named a head coach yet?
It's Romeo Crennel.
Romeo Crennel, the former head coach. I mean, some leadership. They're the 6.5-point favorites against the Jags. So, I mean, they're still considered a good football team according to Las Vegas. Usually when a coach is fired, I feel like they rebound pretty good with the interim coach, like coming out of things. They tend to get back to basics, run the football a lot. And Jacksonville is a team I can't figure out. I don't have a good read on them. I was big into Keelan Cole a couple of weeks ago. I think he's a decent fantasy option still, but he's kind of cooled down a little bit over the last couple of weeks. I'll hand this one over to you. Who are some players to watch?
So, I mean, really at this point, the Texans have nothing to lose. I mean, they haven't won a game. Romeo Crennel knows that he needs to coach his butt off in order to keep that job, which he knows in the back of his mind he's not going to be the head coach next year. I think he's just going to have fun with the offense and the defense, and I think the Texans are going to win this game. I think they're going to have fun. I think Watson's going to have more freedom to do what he needs to do. As far as fantasy options in this game, I really like, the big four with Houston, with Watson and David Johnson, Will Fuller, and Randall Cobb. Those are the big four for me. And then on the other side of things with the Jags, the only two I'd really touch are James Robinson and DJ Chark. I think the Texans are going to play for their coach. I think this is a long time coming for Bill O'Brien. Even though he had a winning record and he had 3 division titles, I mean, he just tore the team apart with the terrible trades that for some reason he was given the authority to do. He should have never been a general manager and set that team back years.
Yeah, and really bad play calling, and I just not a fantastic coaching or GM job from Billy O'Brien there. I like Will Fuller a lot. Player I drafted. I would use him in dailies. This week if you like. I think he is a good matchup and will get you a good amount of points. Anything else to add on this one?
No, I think the Texans take this one. I think they cover the spread too.
There we go. So we both like Houston in this one to get their first win of the season. The Kansas City Chiefs will be hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. They're 13.5-point favorites. The Raiders are one of those teams that, again, can't quite figure out. They're either really good or aggressively mediocre. The Chiefs as well, I mean, they're very good. Don't get me wrong. But they don't always blow teams out like you expect them to, right? They looked kind of human last week. They looked kind of human against the Chargers. And we're used to like video game-esque performances from them. So the fact that they look kind of human isn't like a knock on them, but it does make these spreads of 13.5 points kind of something you might want to take consideration at stabbing at, right? Like, I don't know if they're 13.5 points better than the Raiders. The Raiders were able to beat the Saints that are a good team. In terms of players to watch, Rich, who do you like matchup-wise?
I mean, you saw what Stephon Diggs just did against the Raiders, last week. So for me, I think Tyreek Hill is going to have a whale of a game. I'm also looking at McCole Hardman to have a good bounce-back game this week against the Raiders. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Mahomes are must-starts every single week, the same with Kelsey. I mean, those are obvious ones I don't even have to talk about. But on the Raiders side of things, I was super disappointed with Renfro last week. I mean, he got the keys to the Porsche, and he didn't really do anything with the wide receiver one role he had. There's really no one on that team as far as wide receivers that I would play this week. Josh Jacobs, he's a start every single week. And Waller, he's a start every single week. But outside of that, there's really no one on the Raiders I would start. I think they might cover the spread. I mean, the Raiders might, cover the spread as well. 13.5 points, that's a lot. Besides that, they're not going to win anything else besides possibly the spread. So go Chiefs, everything on this game for sure.
And I agree with you 100%. No need to beat up on the Raiders any more than we already did. Let's talk about the Washington football team against the Los Angeles Rams. Football team benched Dwayne Haskins this morning. Kyle Allen will be the starting quarterback. Alex Smith is the backup. Alex Smith, I'm rooting for him to get in there, man. We have a little $1 bet though. I don't think he's gonna start ever. I don't know why. I don't see it happening. But I'm rooting for him to get in there. And the Rams are playing good football right now. I mean, they're running the football effectively. Goff isn't turning the football over. The defense looks good. Granted, they played the Giants last week, so it's easy to look good against them. And listen, Washington, new quarterback, Antonio Gibson had a monster game last week. He's someone I would still start. I think the Rams defense is good, but they still give up points fantasy wise. I think you start Gibson, you start Scary Terry. You can start the Rams defense, and just Kyle Allen will probably throw a pick or two. And any of your Rams wide receivers or Any of the standard guys. I don't think there's any like sleepers in this matchup. It's your Cooper Kupps and your Robert Woods and your blanking on the tight end that I like.
Higbee.
Yeah, Higbee. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that Kyle Allen throws 3 picks in the first quarter, and then we see Alex Smith the rest of the game. That'd be great. I mean, if he's the backup, he's got to be healthy enough to, stand on the field at least. So, like you said, Gibson, he's going to be in my flex this week. Devonta Freeman did do a bit of running last week against the Rams, but on the flip side, no one on the Rams kind of did much last week against the Giants, which was weird. It was kind of a fluke game. Cooper Kupp had one large, 54-yard touchdown, but besides that, they pretty much contained everyone on the team. Don't think that's going to happen this week. I think Robert Woods is going to have, a bounce-back game. Cooper Kupp, Higbee, like you said. I can't really touch any running back on that team, though, because it seems to be switched up every single week. Once they figure that out, I think they'll be a much better team. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Cam Akers that's going to be the main guy because Henderson and Brown, they can't keep the job. Flip side, Scary Terry.
It's a lot like the Detroit situation. It's just a carousel.
Avoid. Maybe you get lucky one week and they get the touchdown, but you don't know who's going to be the guy that game. So the Rams, you focus on that receiving core. You focus on even Jared Goff this week because I think that, it's going to be a good matchup for him. The spread's only 7, which is kind of weird. It's extra. That's more weird than the Jets spread, I think. At least the Jets have Super Bowl winning Joe Flacco starting for them. I mean, Kyle Allen is. I would bet
the game last year where he threw like 5 touchdowns.
Who?
Kyle Allen.
Yeah, but it was a different team.
He was
not the Washington football team. So
from the Oikos commercial.
Yeah, I would take this spread. This would be my main bet so far. If I'm putting any money on anything, I would take the Rams -7 so far. I think that spread is more weird than anything we talked about.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Another spread that I think is probably a little weird, and we will have to sort of see how this team bounces back. The Pittsburgh Steelers got a kind of an unprecedented bye week. Last week, due to COVID-19, their game against the Titans was postponed. So they're rested. They're 7-point favorites against the Philadelphia Eagles, who just look like a joke. I mean, they're injured. I get it, but wow, do they look like a bad football team? That's another one where I think the Steelers are more than a touchdown better than the Eagles. But why don't you give us a couple of players to take a look at here?
I mean, for me, the Eagles are the Jets in the NFC this year. I mean, if you line up the rosters, you have that gem that people think they have at quarterback, and then nothing else. I mean, they have Miles Sanders and your boy Ertz, but besides that, exactly, they're pretty much the same team. It's just the Eagles are in a much crappier division than the Jets are. So, they have a shot every single week. They can be, 1-7-1, and they can be playing for the title, it seems like this year. So as far as the Eagles go, the only 2 I would touch would be Sanders and Ertz. That's going to be the consistent every week. And Ertz didn't do well last week, and neither did Sanders. So it's kind of a toss-up, but you have to start them if you have them because they're your starters based on where you drafted them. On the Steelers side of things, I love Juju this week. I love Big Ben. I don't want to touch any of the running backs yet. Connor he's too up in the air for me. So I'm going to fade him this week. Eric Ebron is a sneaky ad this week for tight end. I think that, you saw what the Eagles just gave up to Kittle. I'm not saying that Eric Ebron is even Kittle's distant cousin, but Kittle had 40 some odd points in fantasy, so they can't cover a tight end. If Deontay Johnson plays, he's questionable. I think you can start him too. Anyone against the Eagles right now. The Eagles are they should be 0-4 right now. It's just they're not a team that I have any faith in.
No, me neither. So the Interstate of Green is doing real good this year at competing for the #1 overall pick. Let's head on into the 4 o'clock block of games here, Rich. And I think this is a game where Miami Dolphins have a shot to win. They're 8.5-point underdogs to the San Francisco 49ers. I did not like Nick Mullins last week. I think I've been Nick Mullins' #1 fan for a long time, but there was just some real ugliness at the end of that game. And I don't know if he can carry them. I think the injuries are going to get to be too much. And listen, I get Miami's in a good football team, but they have a quarterback who can score some points. They play hard. They're not always good, but they play hard. And I think this is one where they can eke out a win. They're at least not a touchdown worse than the 49ers are right now. So I think them plus 8.5 makes a lot of sense.
I'm going to go the opposite. Just because Jimmy G is probably going to play this week. I mean,
you think he's back?
I think he's back. I think he's going to come back. I don't think he has a choice at this point. I think Kyle Shanahan's going to say, listen, we can't go 2-3 against the Dolphins. You're playing man up. So I think Jimmy G will be back. You have Kittle 100%. You got Debo 100%. You got Ayuk 100%.
If we get Jimmy G back, that changes my.
That's a different story. Yeah. So I mean, McKinnon is playing like he never wants to give the job back to Mostert. Mostert might come back. It's going to be a lot of healthiness on the offense, not so much on the defense because they're out for the year. But McKinnon almost has 200 yards so far, and he wasn't the starter to start the season. He has 3 touchdowns. I think that. On the Dolphins side of thing, Fitzmagic can be Fitzmagic or he can be Fitztragic. Last week he had a good fantasy game, which we knew he would because Seattle's defense is poop. Devontae Parker has 279 yards, so he's playing well. Gesicki is playing well. So the big 2, well 3, I guess. You can start Gaskin, you can start Gesicki, you can start Parker on Miami side. And on the 49ers side, I think you could start Jimmy G, even though he's coming back. This week I think he's going to have a good game. Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, McKinnon. It can be a 49ers party all over again. So I think this game is going to be similar to what it was when they played the Jets. It won't be that much difference in scoring, but I think it could be that high for the 49ers.
For sure. Definitely keep an eye on the injury report for Jimmy G because I think that's the catalyst that makes the team go. With him, all systems go for San Francisco. Without him, it's a little bit different, a little bit of a dicier situation. Let's talk about these surprise Cleveland Browns. These Brownies. They opened the season not so great and have seemingly, kind of turned things around. Now they're the talk of the NFL. Trick plays galore. Odell Beckham Jr. is back. All the big headlines from this week, and they're playing a Colts team that looks pretty good. I mean, they're playing tough football. Phillip Rivers looks good. They're running the football pretty well. I didn't pay too much attention to the Colts game last week. Did your boy Mo Alley Cox deliver?
He scored again.
So they're repping at the tight end position. I think this has some potential to be a fun football game with some teams that we haven't paid attention to for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, this game seems like the most even out of the week. The Browns, after the beginning, it seemed like it was going to be a complete disaster for them, and they're rebounding perfectly. I mean, everyone's doing what they need to do. Odell had a crazy game last week. Jarvis Landry had a great game last week. Your boy Hooper had a good game last week.
Got in there. I told you.
He did. The biggest ad, for waivers this week was Johnson from the Browns, D'Ernest Johnson, the running back. He's going to play the Chubb role, which it's a great role to have for someone that you're going to pick up week 5 in waivers. And then Hunt is going to continue to play his role with probably a 20% increase. So the running game is going to lose a little bit with Nick Chubb, but it's not going to lose a lot. And then again, on the Colts side, I don't love Rivers this year at all. I think that the Colts are kind of winning in spite of Rivers. I think that, you look at T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton is invisible in this team. He's not
invisible, dog.
Yeah, but I watched the Colts game last week, and Phillip Rivers does not look good at all. It's just a matter of, he has a really good coach, and he's putting him in situations where he can get these little dump-off passes for chunk yards. That's why he has almost 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. But anything over 20 yards, he can't complete. That's why Mo Alley Cox is getting in the end zone every single week because he's a tight end that could take a 5-yard pass in and just move his big body into the end zone because he's a basketball player. So as far as fantasy goes, Mo Alley Cox for me, Jonathan Taylor. On the Brown side of things, I like Odell, I like Jarvis, I like Johnson, I like Hunt, and we could sprinkle in a little Hooper for you. If you got Hawkinson or you got a Tanyan from the Packers, I think this is a good little sneak-in ad for you with Hooper this week.
Yeah, I think there's some potential there with Hooper. He's a little bit inconsistent, but last week he got in the end zone. Maybe he'll do it again. Maybe Jarvis Landry will throw it to him. Who knows?
Yeah, that works.
You can't quite pin these brownies down. Let's talk about the NFC least here. New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. No one in that division has looked good, but you can for sure say that the Cowboys are the most talented team in this division, and they should get a pretty easy win here. This should be pretty one-sided and pretty obvious for fantasy what you want to do. It's anyone on the Cowboys, and you might get some garbage time stuff from some Giants receivers if you're desperate.
Yeah, I wouldn't start anyone on the Giants. Even my boy Slayton, he's not playing that great because Daniel Jones literally looks like a robot. He's not mobile. He has no awareness. The Cowboys defense has not been great in fantasy. I mean, it's one of the lowest defenses in fantasy right now, but I think they're going to get a little bit of a bounce back.
I saw a tweet calling them the Alice Cowboys last week because there's no
yes. Exactly. But for the Cowboys, like you said, start everyone. Dak, and he's not going to throw 500 yards again, but he might throw 400. I mean, he's gonna have a lot of time to throw to Amari Cooper and Lamb and Gallup and Schultz and Zeke. I mean, the line for the Cowboys is good. The offensive line is great. Defensive line for the Giants, not so great. So 9.5, that's another spread that I'm going to bet on. I think that's really low. That should be I think that should be a 13.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cowboys are going to win. They're going to go 2-3. And at the end of that week, they're going to be in first place. That's the spoiler alert because no other team in their division is going to win this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one 100%. Sunday Night Football, the Minnesota Vikings will take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are a full touchdown favorite, 7 points. I don't think there's a player better than Russell Wilson in the NFL right now. I think he's playing lights out football. I love everything they're doing. He did burn me a little bit last week on 2.5 touchdowns, but he got down to the 1 and then Carson just banged it in. But listen, we know the Seahawks defense is a liability, and that does kind of open some things up in this game potentially. For a Vikings team that last week had a good performance, right, and they're maybe starting to figure out some stuff, I think this one has some real shootout potential. But I love DK Metcalf. I love Tyler Lockett. Russell Wilson. Carson, got in the end zone last week. This is a game where I think you can kind of spread out and take almost anyone from a skill position standpoint on either team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to say this again. And you can write this down. I will never say this again. But Kirk Cousins is a good start this week.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah. The Seahawks pass defense is not getting any better. And now Justin Jefferson is, he's the guy I thought he was going to be coming out of LSU. So Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, they could both go over 100 yards. Kyle Rudolph, he's kind of like, I don't understand why they extended him when they did, but he gets some weird touchdowns every 3 weeks with one hand in the back of the end zone, and everyone thinks he's great. He's probably going to have a good game. Dalvin Cook, he has 424 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns. He's going to be good on the ground, but he might be even better through the air this week. So Thielen, Jefferson, Cousins, and of course Dalvin Cook. Those are my must starts. You could throw in Rudolph if you need a tight end. On the other side of things, Russell Wilson is the MVP. He's going to stay on this path, I think. Carson was injured but got in the end zone, so he's good to go. DK Metcalf, Lockett. I think, even Olsen. You could start Olsen this week. Olsen has proven that he's old and decrepit and almost an announcer again, but I mean, he's getting in the end zone. So this game's going to be close. It's a 7-point spread. I think the Seahawks win, but I don't know if they cover that spread.
Yeah, I don't know if they're a touchdown better with that defense. They're maybe 4 points better. They're maybe 5 points better. I don't know if they're a full touchdown better. So I probably would stay away from the spread on this one. I'd maybe take a look at some player props, over-unders, that kind of thing, and try and play around because I think a lot of people will be hitting the over. Let's head on over to Monday Night Football now. Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers take on the New Orleans Saints. Justin Herbert is, I think, the surprise of the season. Got into the starting lineup in a surprising fashion, an unheard of fashion, and dueled Tom Brady pretty effectively down the stretch last week. And granted, he didn't win the game, but I think for a team like the Chargers, it's young, it's a little injured. Austin Eckler got hurt. For them to kind of fight these better teams in the NFL, it's a really positive sign. They're 8.5-point underdogs to the Saints, and the Saints are a team that they're also pretty injured. They aren't playing their best brand of football. Alvin Kamara's looked fantastic. Emmanuel Sanders has looked pretty good. But, I think this is a pretty tough game to actually evaluate because Herbert's a little too unproven for me to really know if he's for real or not. But if he shows up and balls out the way he has been playing over the last couple of weeks, I do think they have a shot here.
It really depends on Mike Thomas. If Michael Thomas is back in this game, I think, the Saints could very well cover that 7.5. But if he's out, there's really not a lot of people, chomping at the bit. Traquan Smith had a good bounce back game last week. I think he needs to be that guy again. I don't have any faith in Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, he's not the guy that was on the Broncos. He's not the guy that was on the 49ers. He's a different, older Emmanuel Sanders on the Saints. Alvin Kamara literally can play any position, and that's why the Saints are continuing to win games. Him and Drew Brees are the match made in heaven. Drew Brees literally does not throw the ball over 7 yards, I don't think, and he has 1,000 yards. 8 touchdowns, 1,008 yards. So, Drew Brees, he needs to send Alvin Kamara a very good Christmas gift this year. On the Chargers side of things, Keenan Allen is doing good things. 327 yards. He only has a touchdown, but he's good for the yardage. Mike Williams is going to be out again. As far as waivers go this week, it was Justin Jackson. It was Joshua Kelly. As far as the running backs for the Chargers, Joshua Kelly was taken in most leagues, but Justin Jackson wasn't. Hopefully he can be the Justin Jackson that Austin Eckler wanted him to be, and he never was. On the Saints side of things, Traquan Smith is available in a lot of leagues. Even if Michael Thomas comes back, he is the only other option in town because Jared Cook is out. So I think the Saints win. If Michael Thomas is in, they cover the spread. If he's not, they won't.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair analysis of this game. It goes, we didn't talk about the Bills-Titans game with everything going on with COVID in Tennessee. This is the game that isn't really worth predicting or talking about.
While we were on the show, Corey Davis got added to the COVID list. So I think their season is going to be over. Even if they play games, I think their season is going to be over. I think they have to forfeit this week. Obviously, we don't know yet, but it's hard to see them not forfeiting multiple games because their players screwed up. They literally practiced when they had COVID, maybe. So,
yeah, that is tough for fantasy owners, me included. I have Stephon Diggs. I have Derrick Henry. My backup wide receivers are guys like Corey Davis. So I'm going to have to make some tough fantasy decisions between now and then. So we'll figure it out, though. It's all good. All good. There's players to be had. Before we get out of here, Rich, let's talk about your FanDuel lineup. I didn't get the chance to make one this week, so we'll just kind of talk about yours. I don't know how well you can see this. I can talk us through it if you can't.
Yeah, I'm good. I got it. So, obviously we'll go over it together, but Kyler Murray, that's an obvious one. Playing the Jets defense. Jets defense can't cover anything. Kyler Murray is mobile. He can throw it through the air. He had an off game last week, but he still had 3 touchdowns. I think he's going to put up I don't even know. In maybe 40 fantasy points. I mean, it's going to be at least 30. Kareem Hunt, Chubb's out. He's the main guy. He's the PPR guy. He's always been the PPR guy. So you're going to get, it says 16.4. He's going to hit that more. Mike Davis, it's the same thing. McCaffrey's out. He's putting up crazy numbers. Yeah, I think he's projected to score 18 in most fantasy leagues. He gets in the end zone every single week, and he is Teddy Bridgewater's security blanket, and he's the go-to guy. You know, I did the wide receivers the way I did it because I know how you love your wide receivers, so that I made my team based on the way that you would think. DeAndre Hopkins, he is the Arizona, stack that I'm doing. You got Kyler Murray, throw DeAndre Hopkins in there. I think he's honestly going to have 150 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. That's the stat line I'm giving him. So that's more than 16.2. Tyreek Hill, again, I mean, you saw what Stephon Diggs did last week. Tyreek Hill is better than Stephon Diggs. So that's a no-brainer for me. CeeDee Lamb, 2 touchdowns last week. He jumped Gallup, and he's right there with Amari Cooper. I don't know who the number 1 wide receiver is going to be at the end of the year, which is a great thing for the Cowboys if they can find a defense, which they haven't yet. But he's a must start this week. Mo Alley-Cox, he scores every single week. Every single week he gets into the end zone. This is going to be no different. It's going to be a battle in Cleveland, and I think Cleveland ends up winning the game, but Mo Alley-Cox is going to be in the end zone. Tim Patrick absolutely destroyed the New York Jets last week. He absolutely destroyed them. And I think that if it's Ripien in the game, it's going to be him and, Patrick, the guys that are connected the most. And I don't see that stopping, with New England, especially since New England had their star cornerback, Stephon Gilmore, test positive for COVID. So when I was making this list, I thought of Stephon Gilmore in my head. And that's who would be covering probably Tim Patrick or Judy. And either way, it's going to be a downgrade for whoever's covering him. So Tim Patrick's going to have a good game. And then the third player or defense, you want to call it, for my Arizona stack is the defense. Because there's no one on the Jets that can score many points, especially with Flacco in there. And Denzel Mims not coming back. And everyone's hurt. And Becton's probably going to be out. And it's just going to be a very bad game for the Jets. So Cardinals are going to score a defensive touchdown, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. And, I'm realizing, Rich, we didn't talk about the Patriots game either in our analysis. And I guess because I was using FanDuel Sportsbook as my schedule, and I don't think they want you to bet on a game that could potentially get canceled due to COVID.
Yeah.
But I think, the Pats figured out a way to play last week. Maybe they'll figure out another way to play this week. Let's talk about that for a minute, because my fantasy savior last week came out of New England, and that's my boy Bird. He got targeted a lot by both backup quarterbacks, whether it was Hoyer or Stidham. I think he's someone who's probably still available in a lot of leagues, and is a relatively experienced wide receiver, 5 years in the league. And he had some decent points, 13 points last week. It's his second time getting in double digits this season. He can get in the end zone. Like it just makes him an even better threat. And they're not playing a particularly good team in Denver. So guys like Damiere Byrd, Rex Burkhead didn't have a great game last week, but was clearly involved in the offense, could have a bigger game. I think there's some weapons to be had in New England should that game occur.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will occur just because if, the star franchise quarterback can have it, I don't think cornerback's going to matter. I think, if anything, they should have pushed back the game last week to prevent, the outbreak, but they didn't. So I don't think they're going to do it again this time. On the Patriots side of thing, I don't know what happened to Julian Edelman. I mean, Cam Newton, apparently, they're very comfortable, but when it comes to a backup quarterback, they don't know where Julian Edelman is on the field. So I would avoid Julian Edelman this week. As far as the Patriots go, I really like Damian Harris. Damian Harris, he he's someone that they drafted high that you thought would play more, but Sony Michel is kind of the guy that always got the ball. He's on injured reserve. Now Damian Harris has his time to shine. He would be a start for me this week against the Denver Broncos. And your boy Bird. I mean, besides those two, I don't really know who I'd start on the Patriots besides their defense. The Patriots defense is a must start this week. On the other side of the ball, I like Patrick and I like Gordon and no one else. Noah Fant's hurt. Really, you can't start anyone else on Denver besides Patrick and Gordon. Judy had that one crazy catch that he straight up mossed Pierre Desir, but he kind of was a non-factor outside of that catch. Tim Patrick was the guy just getting all the targets and all the passes. So that's those are my two starts for Denver.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, and that's it. That's the games this week. We had some buys. We talked a little Rona, talked a little injury. Had a lot of fun here on this Wednesday afternoon edition of Daily the Dynasty that is probably being posted Thursday morning. So me pointing out that it's Wednesday, really a stupid way to close this program out.
Well, they'd like to know when we're talking, because things change every day.
Exactly. It's important to point it out because news breaks during the show all the time when we're recording it anyway. But this has been a real fun show. Make sure you follow along on social media. You can follow me at Seagorb94. You can follow Rich at Coda522. You can follow the show at Daily to Dynasty. If you want to leave us a voicemail, head on over to anchor.fm/Daily2Dynasty. Like, subscribe, leave comments in the players, reach out to us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you and help you set your fantasy lineups in this really confusing week around the NFL. I think there's this. It's going to come up to Sunday morning, so make sure you're active all weekend long, checking injury reports, setting your lineups. This isn't the weekend to sleep till 12:58 on Sunday and be stuck with your lineup. You might want to wake up early, make a pot of coffee, and watch some ESPN. Check out Daily Dynasty on Twitter, and make sure you have your lineup situated. But yeah, this has been a real fun show. We missed having John and Marcus on. Marcus will probably be back next week. John has been a little MIA, but we'll get him back on here soon enough. We miss him, we love him, and we'll have him on the program soon enough. But thank you guys so much for listening this week and every week, and we'll talk to you next time on Daily Dynasty.